Hey there, folks. Welcome to the Unreal Engine live stream. Sorry about some of those technical difficulties there. We're still getting the swing of things and transitioning and figuring out new setup and whatnot.
It,
But
it, it was me.
yeah, geez, chance. Way to just be a pain and ruin everything.
No, we're trying to solve for a lot of new screen sharing from offsite. There's some really great content coming up from some of our partners and some of our licensees next week, and so I guess I'm the guinea pig. So
Nothing like making our own people guinea pigs first.
yeah, it's all right. You know what? I'd rather take it on than others. So
Yeah. And it's especially good because it's you. You're used to all
oh yeah,
these like
I've been
weird.
there. I've been in the panic mode of trying to type and like, sorry everyone.
We're
So
going live. Ah. Yeah. So, well, thank you again for, I know you were just here with us last week and you've returned once again. You just can't get enough of us. Um,
well, yeah, and I'm also not going to be skipping out the end of the Megajam, right? Like the whole closing the door on submissions and things like that. So I'm just
I know we
finishing the
already
work.
have over 160. I'm excited, you guys. Okay.
Yeah, we're skipping. I don't know if you already mentioned, but we're skipping news community spotlight this time around just because of the technical difficulties. I think we could probably take what we got from last week and maybe roll it in
Well, we're talking about
later.
Megan and I may jump in and record those afterwards so we can still hit you guys with some of that information. We'll post that up
Yeah.
later. So.
So apologies, folks, but we'll get there.
But yeah, so this week is about getting started with handheld AR. And
Yep.
so you're going to dive through our AR sample project a bit, and then it'll talk about both AR Core and AR Kit. Yes.
Yep. So you've probably been paying any attention to some of our news over the last 6 months. We've got full support in for ARKit and AR Core, the new SDKs or capabilities from phones from both Apple and Google. And so we we've released projects on GitHub or integrations on GitHub over the last two releases, and now everything is in 4.18. So we got a sample project out there that kind of deploys out of the box to both of them, and so we're going to kind of walk through some of that and kind of the state of where we currently are, kind of where we're going soon. I've got a couple of y'all's questions that I pulled from the forums here that are really great, so we'll try to get some clarity on that too. But if you haven't been paying attention, um, some of the supported devices for this are really the A9 and A10 series and beyond from Apple. So it's like this iPhone 6s and newer, the iPad Pro and newer. Those are the ones you're going to see. And we're assuming that going forward, any new devices come up as well too.
Right.
And AR Core is very similar from Google, and we've got it in Pixel and the Pixel XL, as well as the Samsung Galaxy 8, the Pixel 2, and so they're looking to bring it to millions of devices, you know, over time going forward as well. And so really excited about it. There's a lot of really great things in there too. Some of the biggest bullet points for AR that they put out there are things like light estimation. It can take light information and then light your scene with that or influence your scene with it. As well as you can do plane detection. So when you're scanning over a surface, you can find planes in the area, as well as hit detection. I can poke out there and send things. And I can actually move in and out of the space too. So it's pretty nice. It's a lot of fun. If you watch back to the WWDC videos from the keynote from last summer, you'll see that one of our licensees was up there showing off an amazing game. Actually, no, I'm sorry, it wasn't that. It was the iPhone 8, iPhone
Yeah,
X
that was
announced
the
for that. Yeah, for the
the
machines, right?
machines. Yeah, that was such a
Yeah.
cool
So
like swooping in, and they're just attacking the enemies as they're going. And
yeah, it's really awesome. And then oh yeah, the WWDC one was the WingNet team that was
yeah,
showing their film or their storytelling experience there on stage at the actual reveal. So lots of people doing a lot of really great things already. And so we're gonna just kind of take a look real quick at how to get moving with it with our AR sample that's up there. And so if you want to start building today, you can, as long as you've got some of the prerequisites. And so I'm gonna hop over real quick to what those are. So if you're going to be working with iOS, of course you need to go through our iOS Quick Start. You've got to be a registered developer. You've got to get your signing certificate. You got to add your devices and those things. This is all on docs.unrealengine.com. I know that looking at a picture of documentation screen here is super compelling, and you're going to remember all this from this one screenshot. But if you've never done mobile development before, I encourage you to start here just to kind of understand what the full deployment pipeline looks like, and then we can hop into the AR specific bits later. If you have, you already know what this is like, and so it's just kind of a little bit of a refresher. And same thing with ARKit, you'll actually need a device, of course, right? So right now there's not a way I can drag my computer around to kind of, you know, simulate the exact thing that's going on inside there. So you'll want to have a device to test on. Like I said, it's A9 and higher. And then currently right now, it does require a Mac to actually deploy to. In the past, we've had support for pushing binary content only to iOS from Windows, and we kind of have that broken a little bit, but we're working it back in, so it won't be gone forever, fret not. But as the things stand right now, it will require a Mac. And the same thing for Android, just Android Quick Start. All the Android tools ship with the engine, so you can download them from the extras folder that's inside your build directory, and then go from there. And then the same thing, you have to have a device to actually get running. Like the Pixel, Pixel XL, Pixel 2, Galaxy 8, those kinds of things, and then more to come. So we're really excited about that. All right, so the core, most things that we're talking about today are going to focus on the AR sample project that we built out and we shared here on the release notes. So again, yay, web pages to look at, right? But if you go to 418 release notes, just Google search, I don't know, 418, you can find this on our docs, you can find it anywhere. There's a link in here that says download the updated AR sample project. If you've been working in AR before with Unreal Engine over the last few months, this was two different paths to go to, AR Kit and AR Core, because we had, you know, different people working on different parts of it at different times to actually get support in for them. And they were both different branches that were available on GitHub. Google's was on their GitHub, and we had ours on ours. Google's on their branch of our engine, and the other one, the ARKit one, was managed by us on GitHub. So we kind of, you know, brought those things into one. We've combined them into a single project, with the goal to just get out of the box deployment from this, regardless of what you're trying to do. So yeah, with that, I'm just going to go ahead and dive into the actual project. You can download it here, just one click, it pulls down. It works straight out of the box with 418. Things are set up and ready to go. So I am going to get weird with.
I also tossed it into the forum post for those of you that might see that and not want to dig through the release notes. It's easier for you to grab.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a direct download link too, so it'll just put it on your hard drive and you can open it up now. It shouldn't compile a ton of shaders. There's not a whole lot in there. It's pretty bare bones, but we hope to check as many of the boxes for some of the common things you'll be doing up front just to get up and moving. So on that note, let's take a look at the actual project itself. Let's see what we got here. Great. So the AR sample is really, really simple for the most part, as a sample should be. There's just a couple of classes you need to think about. If you've worked with the Google or Apple implementation for ARKit or AR Core in previous versions, before 4.7 or 4.18, you might remember putting a sphere in the space and kind of mapping, you know, a ARKit texture to a material that goes to that sphere. Well, you don't have to do any of that anymore. It just works kind of out of the box, if you will, as long as it's set up to be an AR project. And we'll take a look at that in a second. The goal there is we don't want you to have to build like some geometrical constraints around your world here. We just want the camera to actually work straight out of the box. And so we'll show here in a second on the AR player pawn, you don't have to have a special AR camera added to your pawn. The standard camera component will work just fine. So we don't want you to have to think about different pawns for an experience that might be non-AR in some spots and AR in others. And we'll get to that a little bit too. So the pass-through camera is great. It happens just automatically as long as your project is set up. So I'm going to hop over here to project settings. If you're starting from scratch, you'll have to go through and check this. So if you're building from the sample, it's already set up this way. But if you're trying to rebuild it from scratch, you're going to need to make this change, or you're not going to have a great time. So if you come into the standard project and then description, scroll all the way down, you'll see start in AR is checked here. It's just a Boolean that's set up in the settings and it knows what to do there. Or if you're not wanting to look through that, you can seriously come to all settings and just type in AR, and you can see it's one of the first things that shows up here. So it's really great. That just happened to work out in our favor because look at all this other AR stuff, because like start, area, and all that, but it just brings it right to the top of the list.
Nice.
So that's good. So pass-through camera, you don't even have to think about at this point, which is really great. A couple people have talked to me about this in the past, and I think there's a question that's come up on the forums as well, and me chatting with the engineers here too. is that toggleable at runtime? It is, but not currently in blueprints. It's something we hope to ratify and actually have in the future, but you can go down to the code and just, make a blueprint function, on a specific blueprint library class that allows you to change it in blueprints, or just do other things that are event driven inside your game logic that allows it to switch to and from AR. So for right now, it starts right out of the box. You can change it in code, and we're hoping to have that rolled into around 4.19. We want that to be a toggleable thing inside blueprints. So as mentioned, I'm going to drop this. Same thing we want to talk about with projects out of the box. We want to make sure that the plugins themselves in the plugins menu, which you can find here under edit, and then actually, I'm sorry, it is window. No, it's under edit. Okay, great. Edit plugins, and you want to just type for ARKit and ARCore, respectively, to enable them for your project. You enable it asks you to restart so it can link everything up. But let's see, ARCore, same thing here. Again, this project's good to go. Shouldn't be an issue that you run into often, but if you want to disable and enable them, that's where you do it, because they are plugin based for the engine. So we're going to take a look back here at the project. So you'll see in our project window here, roll this down. There's really not much in the scene. It's just a black nothingness. There's a skylight and light source for the objects in the scene. There's this blueprint called BP Axes. Nick Adams built this just as a visual reference inside your game as to what your origin point is. So you kind of know where the game, the runtime actually starts, right? And once the scene actually builds and actually puts you in the scene, that is kind of your zero location. That's really it. So if you're looking through this project and trying to figure out what that's for, it's literally a visual indicator. And it's a blueprint in here so we can actually stack it up in the viewport and scale things out. Just some cones and cylinders, nothing too spectacular. It's also kind of your starting point. So if you're walking around a scene, you can see that inside your scene. You can toggle it off at runtime if you want to, or via touch inside the actual application. The most important part here is going to be our AR player pawn. The AR game mode really just sets the player pawn to be the default pawn to spawn. And then these are just some spawnable objects that are inside the game with not a whole lot going on with them. We'll lightly touch on them here in a second. So let's hop into our AR player pawn and go from there. We'll first look at our viewport just to kind of show out that there's not really a whole lot going on in here either. There's just the scene and then a camera on it. Pretty simple. And then in our events graph, we'll hop from there, and we're going to first take a look at some of the things that are really core to AR, and that would be tracking and finding planes. A lot of this stuff is going to happen behind the scenes from what ARKit and ARCore are actually just doing as it's initiated inside the device. And so we're going to share some of that information up to the screen here in this debug information, but we'll take a look at that here in a second so we can kind of see. I have a video that goes along with this so you can kind of see where it's actually being drawn and why it's important. So we'll save that one for just a second. But once you have planes, an important thing is actually going to be hit detection to find out. Say you want to do the common thing like, okay, I want to tap on the screen and I want something to spawn in that area. So how would you do that, right? Well, we're not quite fully unified on both of these things. And so there's two kind of code paths you'll see here, the green pieces and the blue pieces for each individual platform. So green is Android and blue is iOS. So let's take a look at the hit detection for ARKit. So basically what we're doing is we're grabbing our input touch and we're just taking a single finger index here. You can work from multiple the same way you would with anything you're doing for mobile. And then we're grabbing our player controller, which is 0. It's just the default for this. We're going to go ahead and grab a vector from the X and Y location. And we're going to come through here. And we're just switching on an is Android. We set this up and begin play just to be able to switch on platform. And this will hopefully be deprecated in the future. So you'll still be able to use is Android or those kinds of things if you want to do specific other API things like play services or iAds or whatnot in the game. You still can be able to break off based on your platform. But we're just doing it here just to handle the hit test and then do we get it or do we not, and then we spawn the object. And then we've got this basic no hit found, this information to the screen. So let's take a look first at the iOS path here. So we do an error hit test for ARKit. And there's my logic. So it's pretty straightforward here. You'll see that it's throwing a hit test the screen at specific. Oh, I double-clicked and it went away. Hey, I crashed it. All right. Amazing. Yay. It's been running for 3 days on this machine while I've been running through this. So it's probably got a little bit going on that's not necessary. So I will open that back up and we'll get moving.
You know.
But the cool thing is the approach is, yeah, the approach between both of these is really similar. So like some of the ideas and the way that you would actually build it, it's all kind of the same thought process. And so there we go. We're back up now. Back into this thereupon. Look at that. Where were we? So we are, yeah. So we're throwing it from the screen here, and this is something that's down in the Apple ARKit blueprint library.
Hold on, I'm not
and
seeing your screen.
We're passing. What's that?
I don't see your screen.
Did you lose me? Oh no. Hang on.
Thanks for bearing with us, folks, as we figure all this out.
Yes. How is that?
Yes.
Am I sharing again?
Yeah.
Great. All right. So let me get back to it. Sorry about all that. All right. So we're back up here. You can see the blueprints. Wonderful. Show me the blueprints. So we're really just taking in that vector information that we got from the touch, and we're able to pass it straight into hit test at screen position. And we're kind of filtering out by, what we want to do here. This is all down in the ARKit library. So we've got an existing plane. So really, we're not wanting to spawn just randomly from things that it's found that we've actually hit. We actually want to find an ARKit plane, right, that's out there so we can go ahead and put something on it. And you'll see that here in a second. And we're just grabbing right here. The out results come out of this array. We're grabbing the very first object there, and we're breaking it up. And you'll see inside here you've got what kind. Let's see what this is, actually. So yeah, it's it's the type of hit. It's an enum inside the ARKit library. You get distance from the actual device, and you get transform information like you would expect. And so if we didn't get it, we're just going to return success nothing, and we have no spawn or transform or anything like that. The rest of this right here is just kind of information that we're throwing up to the screen. You can take a look at it. You can cut some of that out if you're actually looking to build something real from here. But this is just so we know what's kind of going on. And then a return node comes out with a success positive when we pass the transform from that hit. So if we come back over here to do hit test for ARKit, we're in the event graph. Yeah, so basically come out here is, did we succeed? If we did, great. We're passing the spawn information. We're just going to spawn a BP placeholder object, placeable object. And you'll see over here, that's just this simple, just an actor. It's got randomizes what mesh goes on it, whether it's going to be a sphere or a cylinder or a little cone. And nothing else here is just going to happen except for just a drop animation. So it just and then lands on the ground. Pretty simple. Close that one out. And you'll see if we go, there's my file. So if we take a look here at do test for AR core, inside here you'll see that it's really the same thing. We're just taking that vector information and we're getting screen to world space positions. And then we're passing that in on, you'll see target is Google AR core session function library. So this is the same thing. It's doing line trace to planes, and it's trying to get an output of a thing that it hit. So just like what we're doing with Apple, where it's going through and it's passing that vector information, finding out what was hit, if it was a success, it's outputting the thing that it hit. And so we've got to do a little bit more transform information here. We're breaking it apart. But you'll see here, there's a return node. Did we return anything special? Yes, no. Some more debug information, and then the return node sends it back out. And it's almost identical here too. One thing we're doing a little bit differently is we have this BP Google anchor instead. And right now, the two APIs are looking at objects that are spawned and anchored to the world a little bit differently here. And so based on Google's AR Core project that they had last summer, we're basically taking that plane and we're associating that plane that we you'll see here. We're setting up, where is this? Cast to anchor, and we're holding on to the anchor actor here. That's a child component, and then we have this attached plane. This is something that Google has set up in theirs, and so we're basically just taking that same attached plane that we found here at that test, passing it out, and it's being held here in that object. So that object knows kind of what to do about the plane that's below it. And let's see. So you'll see that they're kind of almost exactly the same there. And we have plans in the future to unify this. So it's not going to be path A versus path B. You just build once and you just go. Similar to how we're doing with VR, similar to how we're doing with pretty much any platform that you want to, that's similar that you want to deploy to. There will always be a little bit of nuance with capabilities, but some of the core basic things that you want to do for AR are all going to be the same. So over here, there's a little more information about, I say debug display information about found planes. And so really this is all happening on tick. You might come in here and see that this is something that's oh wow, this is a lot going on tick, and be like, I thought I wasn't supposed to use tick, which in most cases you want to avoid it if you can. But what we're mostly doing here is just trying to give the user, or give you as a developer, a little bit of an understanding as to what's going on inside the project while you're working in it. So you'll see in here that there is find planes for ARCore that we don't actually have for ARKit. ARKit finds, it detects planes really, really quick for the most part, and you just kind of know that they're in there, and it's cached in some information. It's currently hidden from the API here, and it's something that we want to expose a little bit better. With ARCore, we want to say, okay, let's go through here and find this. And there's this, let's see, get all planes, which is target Google ARCore frame function library. It's also built into the plugin there. So you can query this, get a number of planes, and we show here, hey, here's all the planes that you found. And then we update number of planes found, right? So that shows up on the screen every time. Let me get back here too. And then after that, the sequence will roll, and then it says display debug information. You'll see here it comes down and it says, okay, great, let's get the camera information. So we share the world transform of where the camera actually is in the space. We've got a tracking quality function in here that basically is looking at the device and understanding, hey, are we actually tracking well, or are we not? So you could do some logic off this to say, hey, you know what, we're not really tracking well. Do we want to reset some things, or do we want to not let the user do something until that moves up? And that's passed to the screen too. So there's a lot of debug information here that you can dig apart and understand if you want to start working from this data to actually drive player behavior or gameplay and things like that. And then outside of that, you've really just got this no-hit information found here too. So that's a lot. There's these two different spots here that we're doing with plane detection that are separately. There's two things here that are hit detection that are done separately, and we're wanting to unify those in the future. That's the goal for 4.19 currently, but that's kind of the overview of the core stuff that's happening inside AR Pawn. And the Pawn class here is, as always, it's where we capture all this information, but it's not always the place that you necessarily care to do it all. As you know, pawns can die, and then what do you do with this kind of logic? So you might set some of this up in a player controller, or in a game mode, or in some other game instance or singleton like that you can use instead. So yeah, there's a quick video on this too that kind of shows what that is. Do y'all have it over there at HQ? Yeah, you kind of see over there. Hey, can you start it over a little bit? So maybe we can get back to the beginning.
Just a second.
Yeah, no worries. But basically, this is the room I'm sitting in right now, and I was recording this beforehand. See, yeah, there you go. So up here in the corner, you see limited tracking right now, and then we get normal. So we found that plane there, so I tap with my thumb, and whoop, there goes the little guy there, and you can see the transform information is dropped. You can see over here, this is no hit, so I'm actually not actually finding a plane, and that's where that red box is coming from. And then I found the ground here, so you can see it's gone to 2, and I can put that on the ground. Same thing, hit information and transform information. And I can come over here, and I'm going to see if I can find the chair. And there's the chair, right on. recording a phone with a phone is a really exciting thing, let me tell you. But now we've got 3 different planes, at different levels of verticality in the room. And that's, you can kill the video for now. But you've got 3 different planes, 3 different levels of verticality in the room. We've got devices on them in different ways. And it's really cool too. There's a lot of information that comes up on planes that you can actually, show surfaces and things like that. And so we have some plans on that. And I'll cover some of our next steps here in a minute, so you can use that as debug information, really know what meshing's actually been done. Kind of similar to what Google had, Amanda, when we were showing at GitHub Universe, right, where you can scan the whole table and it shows that one's orange and the we're wanting to do some things like that to give really good visual debug feedback to developers. They know
really helpful. If you haven't seen their sample, it just sort of unfolds and you're like, oh, this whole table is clearly marked with the grid, and it's very clear as to where you can set objects and things.
Definitely. And so, so what we're wanting to do is give you everything you need visually, or whether it's like on-screen readouts or actual visually in that space, in actual 3D space, that allows you to do that. Allows you to know at least know what's going on. Like, why is my thing not spawning? I'm actually getting a hit test back that's meaningful. Oh, I'm not, because I've never found that space. And the same thing goes too with AR. It likes some surfaces from these devices, and they're getting better over hardware release over release, but they like some surfaces better than others. Like if you've got like a super glossy floor that's got light reflecting off of it, there might not necessarily be the same level of, oh, I understand that this is a complete space. And so patterns work good in some cases and they work worse in some cases. And so you'll kind of want to work through some of that and use that to your advantage whenever you're designing your content. So that kind of is the overview of the project itself. It's pretty small. It should deploy. I'm going to move back over to it real quick. And it should deploy. Let's see what we got here. There we go. It should deploy just out of the box once you download it with this just to your Android devices or your iOS devices, and then go from there. As long as your SDKs are set up, in a way that there we go. As long as you're set up in your SDKs are set up in a way that you're already deploying to devices, you shouldn't see anything different from this, unless the device itself doesn't, in fact, support the newer technologies that Google and Apple are putting into their devices and things. So a couple things on next steps. I mentioned it a few times here too. Like as always, we want to remove a lot of the specifics out of the way that may be nuanced between platforms, and really provide a unified API that allows you to really think about the content you're making and not necessarily about the platform you're deploying to. Of course, you want to think about that for markets and things like that, and how you want to work with specific services that are only available to them. But when it comes to building your games or your any other visualizations or any augmented reality experience, we want you to think about that. Those are the problems that we want you to be able to solve and not have to fight technology, because it sounds terrible, right? And so that's on the way. We're looking at 419 for that. That's just kind of the goal for that. And on that note too, we're also aiming for at some point, hopefully on the same time frame, an out-of-the-box template for an AR project that's available inside the editor. So whenever you're wanting to build like another one of these, you can just say, I want to build a new AR project, and it sets up things like it's ready for plane detection with some debug information. It's ready to take hit tests with some examples in there, and it's already ready set up for light estimation. So you can hit that, go right out of the box, and it'll have less of the cruft that this AR sample has, but it'll be a good place for you to start a new project specifically for these use cases. Working on better hit testing and anchoring support. Right now it works. We want to make it like really super robust and really precise. And there's some cool new challenges with AR that we're taking a look at right now, where it's like, I'll give you an example. If I scan this table and then I leave and I scan over here, but really the table is an L shape, and then I come back and I scan in the middle, it might, like right now, the way things work, it might think those are 3 different meshes because they were found at different times. And so we're trying to solve some cool challenges there to kind of go, okay, great. No, this is actually one space together, even though it was found in different ways, and it's registered as a new plane. Maybe we want to set up some bounds that allows like a character to walk all the way across it and feel like they're walking on the same surface. So there's some of those things that we want to work in there as well. And then same thing with light estimation, right? Like some of the codes in there for light estimation, we want to make it where you've got a couple of options just available to you as high level as possible, hopefully all in blueprints, that you can choose how you want the lighting in the real world to affect the lighting in your game, and get that information and set it and test it as quickly as possible too. Another thing that's come up in some of the questions I've had from others is scale and world origin. World origin has been asked about Unreal Engine for a long time, but when you really want to take advantage of things like pre-baked lighting and bigger scenes, being able to move where the world origin is in 3D space, the actual device space and then the world space inside the game, it's kind of an important thing to think about, because if I'm looking for, say I have this amazing scene that's got, it's a full sequence of things that are happening, and I've baked light on all of it that's there, but I want it hidden from the player or the user until they've actually found a space that they can actually show it on. I need to tell the game where that space is inside the game world. But as I'm moving around and trying to find it from here, as you'll see with that transform inside the game, that world origin stays at the same spot. And so instead of me having to figure out where I need to start my experience to start scanning a table, I would rather just walk in and scan a table and say, I want this level with this baked light and these sequences to start right here. And I choose that spot, and it does the correct offsets from where the camera is and rolls those things out. So we're trying to make that as easy as possible so you can take advantage of all of the hyper performant things that mobile devices might need, because you're working with limited resources in a lot of ways. So yeah, that's kind of the goal with that. And then we want to, like I said, add things like easier ways to preview and debug track geometry. I'd love to know more about how much of the floor I found. You saw in the video I had a table and I had a chair and I had a floor. If I would have known which one was 1, 2, and 3, that might be important to me. Or if I know how much of the chair is actually taken, given how I'm putting that cylinder into it. I don't want to put it near the edge. I need it to be in the middle so it's not clipping through other things in the real world. And then, of course, documentation, tutorials, and support. We've been working with the docs team for a little while now, getting them, working with this with me and giving me feedback and stuff. And so it's been really cool. There's a lot of cool projects that have happened here at Epic, like my augmented meowity thing, where I can put a cat on my desk and pet him. I know I decided not to show it off.
It's so awesome.
It is so good. My favorite air experience so far. Yeah, that's all on the way. We're actually working through that unified API right now, and we're just moving towards 4.19 with it. So we can't wait to get that out to everybody. And on that note, same thing. We want your feedback. There's the feedback for Epic forums, of course, that I've spent some time in, just like reading on things for AR and VR to understand what feature requests you're looking for specifically around these platforms, as long as they're in within the bounds of what the devices are capable of. It's really new, and so it's difficult for us to, I guess it's difficult for anybody to anticipate what challenges people are going to run into until they start building content that's like more than a 2-3 week thing at a time. And we're working with a number of different partners that have been doing that. We've got some really great things from them, and so we know there's a lot of y'all out there as well. We'd love to hear from you and see how we can use that information to help direct our efforts going forward. So you can post there. You can post over to the VR and AR forums. Goal of mine is to spend some more time there too, to chat with you all and kind of figure out some of the cool things we're working on and some of the stuff we're running into. And same thing when it comes to docs and tutorials and those kinds of things. Like, we want to know what common tasks you're trying to do day by day, so we know what we can provide for you that'll actually help you succeed in that, whether it be out of the box at the beginning or towards the end, like, hey, this is a challenge I'm not really sure how to solve yet in the future. Those are things that we can be thinking about, or things that we've already thought about and then work through, that we'd love to be able to share whenever we can. Cool.
All the things.
So that's about that's kind of an overview of the AR sample project. It's available, like I said, on the release notes. You can download it and poke holes in it there. There probably won't be a full update to it for 4.19 as we're looking to templatize it and build some tutorials from it for that release. So it'll be the same kind of thing. It just won't be on some random download link. You'll be able to get it from better official channels. So I
That'll be
like that
nice
a
and
lot.
fancy.
Yeah, and well, and I anticipate, I'm hoping that there'll be more devices out there, to test on and more things
Yeah.
as well. I'm really excited about it. So we are getting a little closer on time, so I'm going to hop into some of the questions from the forums. If that works for you, Amanda?
Sure.
Great. So a couple things that have come through, and I think we've answered some of these, but I'll reiterate them now. So later, if anybody's catching up to the archive, they can hop in and see if the questions answered. How do we set up realistic shadows and animations of characters, static objects? The static object, you can do backlighting, but like kind of as we talked about before, knowing where that space is and the world position is, or world origin position is going to be maybe a challenge, but it's more just keep that in mind as you do it. And we can there are ways you can work around it now. Other people, what they've done is they've actually moved the camera away from the origin space, as opposed to do some math of, okay, great, I've chosen that is where I want to spawn my item, and instead of moving the origin, they actually take some reverse math and move the camera further away. So you still get those results, you still get everything you need there, but it requires you to go and actually write the vector math to do that. And we don't want everybody to have to work through all those things and debug that while they're working through it. So that would be to do static lighting. For like an animated character and things like that, what we've done in VR in the past, just it works for performance and actually works pretty well here, as long as you tweak it, or things like blob shadows that are actually a part of your actor and your asset, and so they react to like animation notifies, or those kinds of things, and they scale up and down. McDonaldson did this for Showdown, and it was a pretty believable effect. And AR on a device like a phone, you actually get even better results because you're not embedded into it and living it the same way everybody else is. Is documentation on the way? It absolutely is. We're actually working on docs for 4.18, but knowing that we were going to change a lot of how you do hit testing and how you do how we query planes and anchors and things like that. We didn't want to write something that we're going to have to just completely tear down and then put back up, because we know there's going to be a time in between those two things as things live, that we're not going to be able to just one-to-one flip the switch on that, because some people will be on 4.18 still, some people will be on 4.19, and there's a lot of that will probably be conflicting. So I've been thinking about putting together a wiki page that can kind of outline some of the things we've talked about here. I'll be sharing these notes for sure on a page like that, so you've got that available as well for 4.18. But 4.19 is kind of our goal for AR documentation across the board. Even a new section in the docs. It's exciting. Hey. So again, this was answered earlier, but I'll go ahead and answer it here. So how do we start and stop an AR subsystem at will? Can only launch a project with or without with no toggle. Yeah, the commands would be in C++. What I would do is I would look for B starts in AR, just do a solution search for that and see where it's actually calling that and what functions are actually switching the bits on the backside. We plan to move that into blueprints in the future. So you have the ability to start new menu, do a thing, do that, and then hit a button and move into AR. But it is possible now. You just have to get into the code a little bit. Let's see. Yeah, the changes above. Oh, this is one that I grabbed. I guess the basis of the question is: do I need to compile a remote Mac every time if the changes above are gameplay level? And I don't believe so. If you're moving to ARKit, I don't believe so. Now, I did mention that deploying to from Windows is still not necessarily something that is in good shape as of right now. I'm still planning on getting it fixed and getting out there, but I don't think we have a really solid ETA on that. But I can follow up with Pete and see if we can get a good answer for that. Have you actually managed to successfully build an ARKit app and package it for distribution to iTunes? We have people that have been working on some of this since it came out, and they've been working across engine versions and moving forward. And so, yeah, they're having success in that. They're pushing builds over test flight and those kinds of things. I haven't personally done it because my actual developer account is, I've let it lapse at this point. But ideally, we get to a point where you can look at our packaging and deployment documentation for iOS and the ARKit specific documentation for the APIs there and the tutorials on how to get moving there, and those two things just mesh together well. Is it possible to interact with already placed items? For For example, move them around, scale, whatever you want. Yes. So once it's in the scene, as long as it's got a collider on it, you can still do a tap to screen to throw a trace into it and see what you find. Whenever we were doing the touch input on the other ones, we were taking the vector information or the screen information and passing it specifically to hey, find a plane, an ARKit plane with this information. You can do it the same as if you're trying to, pop balloons on a screen. Just don't filter out by that. Just say, hey, I'm throwing a trace of this location from the screen position. What am I finding? And then you get that back and you can do whatever you want on it, cast it into the thing you're looking for. For me, the cat, I could put the cat on my desk and then I could pet the cat and he would meow at me. So it's pretty good. Works great. Amanda hated it because it was the most annoying meow ever.
So high-pitched meow, and I heard it all the time.
And I may have mentioned it back on the Robo Recall live stream, but that cat was also the first mod that we made. As a cat gun, and it every time you shot, so it's got some history of that. I'm sure it's gonna roll into a lot more.
Oh, so you're saying it's gonna haunt me? That's what you're really saying.
It will.
Okay.
We will make that happen. Do not worry. Fret not. Let's see. We have here things like questions on scale. It's all assuming world scale right now, and so people haven't moved things really small to make it actually work in physical space. We're looking at ways to solve that too. There's a lot of new challenges here that we're trying to understand. It's like, do we build this in content? Or do we build this in ways that people are expecting to build content already for mobile or for PC, those kinds of things? What are some of those best practices, and what tools can we provide people that allow you to build the content that way, and not have to realize that, oh, crap, I've been here and my gun is the size of the screen, right? So we're working through some of those things. Question here about what is involved with making an AR application cross-platform? Are the AR classes generic? We utilize either based on the device. That's part of the unification, right? So we want to have an abstraction layer that is really just an AR library that we use that is built specifically for these devices and supporting them. And then anything that would be specific to devices, whether it be hardware or services, you would use those separately. But the goal here is to not add extra work for y'all to deploy to both if you want to reach a specific audience, or if you decide later that you want to move to a different platform. We're about removing pain, not adding it, I hope. That's the goal, at least. And then I got this great one. Rotation seems to be broken, like handling rotation, moving back and forth. Is this the case? Yes, it is currently broken. That's another thing that we're working with. So sorry about that. Right now, it's just moving between the two. There's some difference in the world and scales and different things like that that we want to make sure are solid, bulletproof. And again, targeting most of these changes for 4.19. We want to make that to be our full unification, full out of the box, awesome. Awesome build for it. So that's all I got. Amanda, you got anything for me?
I think we're directing people, since we're sort of out of time for today, we're going to have you folks toss all your questions, if you want, directly into the event or this live stream's event forum page. And I've dropped a link, and I can drop it again for y'all. And I'll be like, Chance, go look at this page and answer all their amazing questions. So I'll drop that in.
Yeah.
Anything else from you today, Chance?
No, I think that I just want to see what y'all are building. What's most important to me is that we're putting the right things into the engine for you to use, and we want to make sure that if you've got really great content, we would love to see it. We'd love to share it. There's a lot that's out there that's kind of undercover that I can't talk about. But man, there's so many new possibilities with this. I'm really excited about it. I love it. I've always dreamed about being able to play like chess on a tray table with my wife on an airplane, right? Like without having to bring a board or those kinds of things, right? There's so many applications here. And I just can't wait to see what you all do.
Yeah, so make sure to share all your questions and projects you're working on in the forums. Real quickly, I'm going to drop a survey link so that you all can let us know how we're doing, what you would like to see us cover in the future, and then as always, submit your projects to our NVIDIA Edge program. I love being able to give you graphics cards for the amazing projects you guys submit. And for those of you that participated in the Epic Megajam, I'm super pumped to go play all your games. I've been watching them, your progress over the last week. They've looked outstanding. And
It's
yeah,
going to be impossible to judge these.
it's going to be tough.
It's going to be impossible. Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome.
I
And
feel,
I guess you're going to bring the hammer down, right? Like and
yeah,
shut
so
submission.
I'm going to run back to my desk and be like, no, no more. Um, but yeah, they look amazing. We're super pumped to play them, and I'll post a list of the entries so that you folks can download other teams' games and play them too. But I'll drop those links in. As always, keep track of us on Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, all them social medias. And thank you again, Chance, for joining us and talking about AR. It's a
Of
hot
course.
topic right now, so yeah.
Love it.
We'll see you all next week. We have Chris Wilson talking about an intro to Paper 2D on Tuesday as a community-led training, and we'll have some Houdini tools next Thursday. So tune in for all that jazz. Bye, guys.
Yeah.